Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is David Cordell. I serve as Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost here at ESU. I hope you can see and hear me okay, and especially I hope that all of you are doing all right today. It is hard to believe, but we are actually nearing the end of the 6th week of classes this semester. We have been so fortunate so far as a university to get to where we are today. And it didn't happen by accident. I just want you to know how grateful that I am and the president is and the other members of your leadership team are for all that all of you have done, the contributions that you have made that have made it possible for us to get to this point. Before we move to questions and answers today, I have just a few things that I would like to touch on that I think might be of general interest. The first thing I want to mention for you is our campus surveillance testing program. Now, this is where we test randomly selected students every 3 weeks in order to monitor the COVID levels on campus. This, of course, is separate from the testing we do of individual students who present with symptoms. Both kinds of testing are very important, but it's the surveillance testing that I'm talking about right now. And I want to share some information with you about that. Last week's round of surveillance testing included about 250 students from the general student population. And the good news there is we had 0 positive results from that round of surveillance testing. That really is good news. And I think in addition, it should be an encouraging sign to us that the campus community is doing what we need to do. The wearing of masks, the social distancing, washing hands, all of that. Thank you very much for your help with maintaining those protocols. Let's just try to stay focused and keep it up because it's working for us. Second thing I wanted to mention as we get underway is just to add a little bit of emphasis to something that was mentioned in the campus message that went out yesterday afternoon from the Fall Planning Group, and that is questions about folks returning to the classroom, or for that matter, returning to the office if they're employees, after quarantine or isolation. And here's the thing that can be a little bit confusing, but I think it's important to understand. The thing to remember is that public health makes the determination about when a person needs to isolate or quarantine because of COVID-19. And similarly, it is public health that makes the determination about when that person is not contagious and is released from isolation or quarantine. Now, generally, for isolation, and that's the term they use, of course, when someone has tested positive for COVID. For isolation, the release will typically be 10 days after symptom onset. And then for quarantine, which is the term they use for someone who has been in close contact with someone who has tested positive, there the quarantine is typically 14 days from the last contact with that positive case before they're released. But here's the key thing. Public health typically does not give the person any kind of document that says, okay, you're good to go back now. That's just not the way it works. And for that reason, it's not helpful for us to, for example, ask the person to produce a letter or any kind of proof, because they're not going to have that. Instead, what we can do, I think, for faculty, stay in contact with your students. For supervisors, if you have an employee that's in isolation or quarantine, be in contact with them. If a student or an employee tells us that public health has released them and they're ready to return, we need to welcome them back to the classroom or to the office. I do think it's okay, for example, suppose a student says to me, Professor, I'm finished with quarantine, I'm ready to come back to class. I think it's all right for me to say, oh, so public health has released you from quarantine. And if they say yes, they're good to go, we welcome them back. The last thing I wanted to mention was just to reinforce that reminder about Thanksgiving break and what happens after Thanksgiving. The thing that I want to emphasize about that is, as I'm sure you already know, Friday, November 20th is the last day of on-campus classes. Okay, so then there are no classes at all for the week of Thanksgiving, and students who live in the residence halls will get some instructions from Residential Life about the fall move out. Now, after Thanksgiving week, as far as instruction is concerned, we have one more week of classes and then finals week, but all of that is remote. It's fully online. Now, that's instruction. When we talk about the campus being open and offices being open, it's a little different situation. Please note that the campus does not close when we finish in-person classes on Friday, November 20th. The campus offices are open Monday through Wednesday of Thanksgiving week. Then, as usual, in most years, they close Thanksgiving Day and the Friday after Thanksgiving, and then the Saturday and Sunday. But then the campus will reopen the Monday after Thanksgiving. So there's a difference between the instruction and when it finishes on campus and the campus and offices actually being closed. Before we open up to questions and answers, I'm going to turn this over to Ray Lauber, who I think is going to give you a little bit of information about student employment.
Thanks, David. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with everybody this afternoon. So I just wanted to do a quick summary of some updates that we have, particularly around how COVID leave through the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act apply to student employees. So under some new guidance, student employees fall under similar COVID-19 provisions that actually apply to our regular employees, including pay for missed work either because of quarantine or isolation, or for individuals who have dependents that are affected by school or daycare issues resulting from COVID. So additional information and details can be found online through the Return to Campus webpage at emporia.edu. One of the things that I would want to make sure that we're clear about is that COVID-19 leave is not available for any employee, whether that's a student, faculty member, or staff member who chooses to self-quarantine without any sort of an order from public health or from a healthcare provider. So those situations would not be covered. Anyone with questions about the proper leave to use or whether they qualify for paid coverage can certainly contact any of the human resource folks at humres@emporia.edu, or you can give us a call at our main number, which is 341-5379. So I'm actually going to turn it over now to Gwen Larson. She's going to help us moderate through the rest of today's call. Gwen.
Ray, I thought you would take longer. Okay, so it is time for Q&A. It is easy for you to submit questions. You need to go over to the live events page on the website, which is emporia.edu/live, and use the submit questions buttons. And that will take you to a Google form that is populating on my end in real time. So we will get your questions. We already have 4, so we're going to start with them while you guys are asking some more. The first question I'm going to give to Dr. Cordell, and that is that Veterans Day is Wednesday, November 11th. It's on our calendar as a holiday. Is it still a holiday?
Well, good news on that one. Yes, it is still a holiday, and that means that there are no classes on Veterans Day and the campus offices are closed. Veterans Day here in Kansas is a state holiday. So that was built into our academic calendar as a holiday from the beginning. And even though we've made some adjustments to our calendar, that part has not changed.
Very good, thank you. Second question, and Dr. Cordell, if you know the answer to this, perhaps this is from a faculty member who is in class on Tuesdays and Thursdays and can't join us for these forums. Are we recording them, and will they be able to be viewed online later?
Gwen, I should know that, but I don't. Can someone help me out with that one?
It's time to phone a friend, folks. First of all, I can say they're recording because I can see the recording button. As far as I know, IT can help us get them posted, and we'll shoot an email out to campus so everyone will know where to find them. It's also good, even if you sat in on a forum, you may want to go back and revisit what you heard that maybe didn't mean much to you then, but now you have that question. Okay, so our next question, this is a good question. President Garrett, I think I might throw this one over to you. And it is, we are now the fall planning group. What are the plans surrounding COVID-19 for next semester?
Well, the fall planning group is already working on plans for the spring semester. What we anticipate today is that things will be much like they are during this fall. We are in the process of seeking a new name for the fall planning group. So if you have a great name to suggest, fast moving team or whatever, we will welcome that. But as the questioner rightly expects, we are already doing planning for the spring semester, and it will be likely very similar in most respects to what we are experiencing this fall.
All right, thank you. Dr. Williams, in Student Affairs, I think I have a question for you if I understand this question correctly. The question is, when will guest privileges be reinstated? And I'm wondering if that means allowing guests in the residence halls.
I'm going to bet it does. So ironically, the Director of Housing and I had a conversation today. There is an interest in wanting to get the guest privileges reinstated. And from the standpoint of what we're looking at, we've had a good week, but that doesn't mean that we're a campus free of coronavirus and that everything can change right away. And so we're continuing to look at a number of factors, talk with our Student Health Center, and we'll have a team reviewing that to see if we can lift some of the restrictions on guests visiting other guests within the residence halls. Key to it all is continuing to wear a mask, continuing to social distance, and continue to do everything we can to meet the guidelines that we do have in place so that we are able to move towards some of those less restrictive aspects.
And before we move to the next question, I forgot one of my duties, guys, and that was to introduce everybody who was on the call, because now that we've started talking, we're just spotlighting the people who are talking. So let me get that out of the way while you ask a few more questions. So you've already heard from Dr. Cordell, our provost, and Ray Lauber, our director of human resources, Allison Garrett, our president, Dr. Williams of Student Affairs. We also have Diana Coleman, our vice president of administration and fiscal affairs. Shane Shively is vice president at the foundation. Shane, I got that wrong. I know you're president of the foundation and you're vice president of something else, but you're here, so thank you. We have Kelly Hind, our chief marketing officer. Shelly Gerke is our associate provost for enrollment management. Brenda Kerner is our vice president of the faculty, correct, Brenda? Okay, and Oswald Allen is our chief diversity officer. So I'm going to give this next question to Kelly. The question is, are there any updates on how many confirmed cases of COVID-19 there are at ESU?
Yeah, so we update the scorecard or dashboard every Friday afternoon. And that was just a date and time that we picked to keep everyone up to date and be consistent when that scorecard is updated. Last Friday, when we posted that, there were 24 active cases on campus as far as students go. So again, that data was almost 7 days old now. So, and then as Dr. Cordell stated at the beginning of the call, through all the surveillance testing of asymptomatic students, we had 0 new positive cases, which is a great sign for campus.
Kelly, could you share where they can find that dashboard?
You betcha. It's emporia.edu/return. And there's a link on that page that says, click here to view the weekly ESU COVID-19 dashboard.
Thank you. Okay, our next question is actually for athletics, which is not with us today. But the question is, will there be any exhibition games this semester for fall sports, specifically for football? I'm going to ask President Garrett to answer this, and I'm sure this question comes because we know at least one of our sister universities is going to play a few football games.
Right, and so the MIAA, as I'm sure you all are aware, made a decision a number of weeks ago not to have fall sports. And the MIAA, our conference, was actually one of the very last Division II conferences to make that decision. We were hanging on by our fingernails, hoping we could play fall sports. And ultimately, it just seemed like the challenges around playing sports during this fall were too great for the conference. Just last week, the conference reconsidered that and did not change its position. But as your questioner notes, we have 2 or 3 members of the conference, I believe there's 13 members, who have decided to forge ahead. Based on my conversations with our athletic director, it's my understanding that neither he nor our football coach are looking toward playing any games during this fall, but we are looking forward to having some kind of football activities in the spring semester. That's something that the MIAA CEOs approved last week, and so you can look forward to that. And we just all hope it will seem like football weather when we actually are back on the field again.
All right, thank you. I also need to, before we jump to our next question, I need to thank Ray Lauber for keeping me on track, because he reminded me that when I was introducing people, I forgot someone, and my excuse is going to be that Zoom flipped 2 pictures around real fast. But Corey Faldine of IT is also with us today. Thank you very much, Corey, as well as for your team organizing our webinar today and letting us communicate like this. So our next question, I'm actually going to throw out to the group, and we may throw it back in the other direction, but that question is, okay, I've got too many screens open. The question is, what is being done to maintain staff and faculty morale? And I will share that I played my own part in my own morale. I looked at my calendar right after Labor Day and decided that I actually had a light schedule and I could take some vacation days. So I took an entire week of vacation. I did not turn my computer on. When I got a text from a media outlet, I asked my boss, Kelly, to handle it for me, and I completely unplugged. And believe me, it made it so much easier to come back to work the next Friday. So if it fits your schedule, I highly recommend that route. Anybody else have some morale boosters?
Gwen, this is Allison, and I give a lot of credit to Shelley and to Ray and others for developing what we call the Heart of a Hornet program last year. And that gives us an opportunity to give a pat on the back to a faculty member or a staff member who really goes above and beyond. And we've been able to recognize so many people in recent weeks for the great work that they are doing. You know, the great semester start that we've had doesn't happen by accident, and it is because of the hard work of all of our faculty and staff. And so here in the last couple of weeks, I think we've recognized George Head from IT, and I believe we've recognized Jason from the foundation as well. And so just lots of great people who are being recognized for the great work that they're doing.
Well, this is David. I'm really glad this question was asked, and not because I have a great answer to it or because I have a string of things that I can hand back to everyone that we're doing, I'm glad it was asked because it's a reminder that that's a question that we need to be asking. And so I would just invite our audience today, either today or whenever you want to, if you have things in mind that we can or should be doing that would help faculty and staff members stay on an even keel, please share them with us, because it might be something that we haven't thought about, or it might address an issue that hasn't even really occurred to us.
I would also say, let's not forget students in the morale right now. I've been told that Dr. Allen and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group have been discussing morale. Dr. Allen, do you have anything to add?
Just quickly, yes, UDIA is working with student affairs, diverse scholars, diverse student programs to implement or expand the diversity ambassador program to include faculty and staff advocates. We're also considering ways to provide educational experiences, book clubs, video, social gatherings, and etc. So those are some of the things that we're looking at and we're actually underway with. So thanks, Gwen.
You are very welcome. Anything else on our staff, faculty, and student morale topic? Is that a raised hand, Shane?
It was just a stretch. No, Gwen, if I could respond to that, and we talked about this as a staff just recently, last week. It seems like a little thing, but we have made a concerted effort to get out from behind our computers. And if you haven't noticed, just about every afternoon, our bands are out on the lawns of our campus. And the weather has been beautiful. The afternoon, 70 and 80 degrees, that works for just about everybody. And it's great just to listen to the talent that we have on our campus. And it really helps center many of the things that we've got going on, a lot of the heavy lifting that we do as a campus. So I would just give a tip of the hat to those students and those faculty that are finding creative ways to get that talent out there. And it just picks up the spirit a bit.
And I would also say, Shane, that if you decide you want to walk a little bit, if you come over to Plum Hall, I've seen the flag team practicing right in the middle of Kellogg Circle, and boy, they do a good job.
I've noticed.
Okay, so we'll move to our next question. This is talking about parking passes and changed schedules. The question is, will there be any type of reimbursement or discount next year for parking passes, considering that many staff and faculty are working remotely? Jim, that falls under your area. Do you have an answer for that yet, or are you still working on that?
There's been no discussion on that topic, and that would be something I'm assuming we would probably ask the parking committee to review. But as of this point, no, that's not been a discussion.
Okay, thank you. Now, I will say that right now, that's our last question. You can still ask some, I'm still watching for them, but I am going to remind everybody that we'll do this again in 2 weeks. It will be Thursday, October 8th at 3 o'clock. It'll be the same setup. You'll be able to register for it and get a Zoom link. You will be able to submit questions, and we would love to hear from you. And if you think of things in between and you can't find the link, please shoot an email to any of us that are on the call. We're all on the fall planning group and can bring your comments to that group. At this point, I don't see any more questions that have come in. I am going to ask our panel if anybody has anything they've thought of we haven't covered that you wanted to bring up.
Gwen, there is something real quick that I'd like to share. You know, as everyone knows, this is a very sensitive time for many of us. COVID-19, challenges, other challenges with our social fabric and mental health, physical health, spiritual health. So please pay attention to each other, and let's extend care by just checking in and seeing how students are doing, how our staff, how our external partners are doing, and each other. And that's the only thing that I really want to emphasize. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. That is a wonderful message, a wonderful reminder, and in my opinion, a wonderful note to close out this forum on. So we will see all of you in 2 weeks. Thank you.